See, we've got Gemma joining us as well. Oh, fabulous. Everybody's coming in now. Fabulous. Well, it's just turned 1:30. We are expecting 54 of you today, so we've got another 40 odd to go. But I will start with the introductions and that will give people time to join, hopefully. So welcome to session 3 in our Empowering Emerging Leaders workshop series with Dr. Claire Mould, founder and director of Curve Strategic and CEO of Heart of England MenCap. Claire joins us today to lead on session 3 on organisational growth and compassionate leadership. We'll be looking at principles, policies and practices that prioritise our people. I will share Claire's slides on the screen so that she can see you and you can see her. Please do join in this session. It is interactive. There'll be opportunities for you to answer some questions, share some of your experiences, and you can also use the chat function to network or ask any questions if you're unable to mute due to the environment you're in today. It'd be fabulous for you to turn your camera on so that you can see you if you're able to. Although we are recording, you will not be captured in the published recording. You will also receive a copy of this after today's session, a copy of the slides, and also a certificate of attendance. And I can see we've got most of us joined now. So what I'll do is I'll start to share our slides, Claire, and then you can come in.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Jade, and good afternoon, everybody. As Jade said, my name's Claire Mould, and I know now beginning to see some familiar faces here, which is really nice, and familiar names, but no problem at all if this is the first time that you've attended one of these sessions. Can I just reiterate, as Jade said, that this is a completely interactive session, but there's no compulsion to interact, but if you feel you want to, I promise you that I have no worries if you just sort of just shout out or put your hand up. Jade's very kindly offered to do the slides, which means then that I can see people if they're putting their hands up and if they're doing things. So if you want to, raise a hand and interrupt me, I will not be offended. I absolutely promise you. So with no further ado, we'll get. Oh, just one more thing, because as we are talking about organisational growth and compassionate leadership, if you did want to share anything, and even though it's being recorded, you can say that to Jade and she can always redact that afterwards. Or if there's something that you want to put in the chat or say, actually, could we have an offline conversation about this? You don't feel comfortable sharing with the whole group. That offering is there for you as well. Okay, right. So onward. So today we're going to be covering in this power hour, and remember it's a punchy power hour, so it's going to be moving at a pace. So it's what is compassionate leadership? Because lots of people think that they know what it is, but not always it's exactly what they think it is. A lot of people think it's completely wishy-washy, which actually compassionate leadership isn't. And then really looking at how that differs from other forms of leadership. And then, as the title indicates, looking at the direct link between compassionate leadership and successful, sustainable organizational growth, because we're interested in the sustainable organizational growth. And then finally, we're going to leave you with some prompts to how can this be achieved in practice. There will be lots of takeaway activities. We'll canter through some of them just so you can sort of have a little bit of a dress rehearsal. But really, what you'll want to do is go away and spend the proper time outside of this power hour to take your time and work through and potentially share those with your teams as well. Thank you, Jade. So a good place to start on a Wednesday afternoon is with the Dalai Lama. And he says, when we are motivated by compassion and wisdom, the results of our actions benefit everyone, not just our individual selves or some immediate convenience. And that's really, there's an awful lot packed in to that quote. It's the fact that, first of all, some immediate convenience. Sometimes leadership, people just sort of do their knee-jerk reaction. This is what we've got to solve now. And sometimes that's inevitable. Sometimes we have to do that. But actually effective, compassionate, long-term leadership that makes an impacts everybody, not just ourselves. It's not just a leadership stance that makes your life easier in this particular moment. It's long-term results for everybody in the organization. And as you can see, so it's that, we're so close to the flag, and it's not about somebody scrambling up there first and grabbing the flag. It's helping everybody up there. Everybody feels a sense of achievement as we work through it. They feel a sense of ownership. Thank you, Jade. So the first thing then that we're just going to spend a couple of minutes to do is, what have you been motivated to do, and was this stimulated by compassion? And by that, I mean, was it just a knee-jerk thing that oh no, I've got to do that now quickly because of this? But actually, was it something that you thought, no, this is something that I feel very passionately about? And what was the outcome, and who did it benefit, and what was the impact? Remember, it's that difference between not actually, oh, I was motivated to do that because I had to pay that particular bill at that particular time, or we had to go into that meeting and do that, or I really need to make the response, but actually that you are stimulated by compassion in your organisation to do, or even at home. So have a moment, literally, we're just going to give you 2 minutes just to think about that. And if anybody wants to share that either verbally or in the chat, then feel free. But the most important thing is for you to start internalizing how you action in a compassionate way. Anybody want to share anything at the moment? Again, no compulsion, but if you want to, feel free. And so I'll just give you a very quick example for myself, and I won't do a work one, I'll do a home one, but it has the same sort of resonance to do that. So I was, well, it's kind of work, but personal. I was having to stay away for a few nights. With something to do with work last week, and there's a washing machine where I was, and which is great because I was doing lots of conferences and things, so I used it. And then, so one thing that I was motivated to do, not in a compassionate way, was when I came to iron my things, having washed them, the iron didn't work, so I was motivated to go and ask whether there was an iron, just to inform that my iron wasn't working. And that was a short-term thing. Someone dropped off the iron. No further interest. It solved that problem at that time. Did it make anybody feel any better? Well, it made me feel a bit better because I had ironed clothes to wear, but it actually put other people out. Whereas when I was using the washing machine, I had to buy a whole tub of these little tablet things to put in it. I was only there for a few days, so I had about 40 of these tub things left because they're the only ones that I could buy. So I noticed that other people were staying there as a family there. So what I was motivated to do, to say, look, you've just arrived. I've literally just been here on a work issue. I've only used 5 of these tablets. Did you want these? And I was motivated to do that because I just thought, well, actually, it saves them buying it, because I was a bit begrudging that I'd had to spend that much money just on a few tablets. It saved them doing it. They had young children, and it meant that for the duration that the week that they were there, they didn't have to buy any washing tablets. So it made them feel better, and actually it made me feel so much better about myself. And I thought, actually, I didn't resent now paying that much money for my washing tablets because it helped somebody else. So it's just those silly little things, but actually the amount of people that it impacts. But most importantly, it made me feel better about that thing that I'd been motivated to do, rather than, because I felt actually quite awkward about asking the person to replace the iron, but that made me feel better. And we have loads of those scenarios that we can transfer into work as well as at home. So just think about that, about what's the benefit and what's the impact. And I would put money on the fact that it benefits more people than yourself and the impact is long term. So take that away and just be ruminating and thinking about that. Thank you, Jade. So let's refer to this as a quote that's a few years old now, but it still stands. And it's from West, and it's compassionate leadership involves a focus on relationships through carefully listening to, understanding, empathizing with, and supporting other people, enabling those we lead to feel valued, respected, cared for, so they can reach their potential and do their best work. Leadership in a compassionate form isn't about you optimizing your potential at the cost of other people. It's about taking the time to listen, to understand, to empathize with and support other people. Too often we see in leadership that the more important people see their trajectory professionally, the more removed they become, the more they say, oh, we haven't got time to reply to that email, to have that personal conversation. And actually the opposite is true. The more senior you get, because of the logistics of your role, the more removed you are likely to be because you're attending different things, because you're probably not so hands-on as you were. But because of that, you've got to make the effort to listen more carefully to the individuals that you're working with and supporting, to try to understand what it's like from their perspective, to empathize with them and support them. And I was in a scenario, literally, I've just come out of a meeting now with an organization, and they were talking about a new IT provider that they had, and the service manager was saying, actually, the support team really liked this person. They really like them because he listens to them, he understands, he speaks to them at their level. He's really great. And they said, but the frustrating thing was the directors wanted to keep with the other IT provider because they said that they were bigger, they were a global organization, they provided 24-hour support, all these really big name things, but actually they didn't provide that personal touch. And so they really had an arm wrestle with the directors who were saying, oh no, but on paper these guys are really good, why would you want to go with the little local guy? But actually they were listening to the wrong people. They needed to listen to the support workers and the care workers because they were the ones that actually used the service. Fortunately, this service manager was compassionate and acted in this way and was able to feed that back to the director, saying, well, actually, I've spoken to the support team and they'd rather have the personal touch. And because the directors did eventually listen to them, they felt valued and respected and cared for. It's just those simple little things. Make sure the higher up you go in the leadership ladder, you take more time to listen to people. Thank you, Jade. And it's that bit that, you know, people feel valued. I mean, I love this picture. It's just those simple little things that you can say, those, you know, those tiny noticeable things. If anybody spent any time with John Wilkes, he uses that phrase about tiny noticeable things. And it's just sending through saying, actually, that was really good. I really noticed what you did today. And that makes people's hearts sing. It makes them really happy. You think yourself, it's those little bits that, if you do a big piece of work and goes, great, thank you very much for getting that in time, that's great. But if someone goes, actually, I really noticed the way you were speaking to that particular family or how you dealt with that particular scenario, it makes your heart sing. It makes you feel really valued. And then what are you likely to go on to do? You go home with a skip in your step and you come back the next day going, yeah, I love it here. I want to do even more, rather than just thinking, do you know what? I've been fighting fires all day and no one's even noticed. You know, it's those little noticeable things that you understand and you empathize and you show people that they're valued. Thank you, Jade. And so compassionate leadership involves 4 behaviors. Attending, and by attending it means actually be present, actually take the time to actually invest in what this issue is. Don't just delegate it out to somebody else. It's really important, because I can categorically tell you, even though you said, but I haven't got time for that. Obviously, you have to prioritize, but make the time for the important things to attend, because I tell you what, taking that extra hour to have a meeting to actually attend and listen and understand and empathize will save so much time down the line. If you just ignore an email or you leave it to somebody else but they didn't deal with it effectively, you will be the one that will be reaping that cost later on. So be present, actually attend, understand where people are coming from, and that will enable you to empathize their perspective. The amount of times I hear leaders saying, oh, but I've told them 100 times and they're just not getting it, they're just not doing it. And then what do? Just tell them more, tell them more, tell them more, and get more and more frustrated? No, actually take the time to understand, why is it that people aren't doing what you actually need them to do, you want them to do. It might not be because of the reason that you particularly want, but as soon as you understand that and you can empathize, then that can be your starting point to try to help them to come around and say, well, actually, again, I was working with an organization yesterday and turning around to the same person and saying, oh no, well, I'm really, really struggling with the organization because it's going digital. It's, and I still want two things. Bottom line is, this organization is going digital. And the leader's got two choices. They can either turn around to everybody and say, actually, at the end of June, we will be completely digital and bad luck, get on with it. Or they can start now, which is the piece of work that I'm doing with them, to actually work and understand, to say, well, which bit of it that you're finding particularly fearful? Look, this is it's not happening, but what is the bit that frightens you about it? What is the bit that you find that actually, think about what bits of digital you just become natural in your life now that you already use. Actually, do you have any apps on your phone that you use quite regularly now? And actually, that isn't too different than what's being asked here. It's a different way, but it doesn't mean that it's a bad way. And you support them through that process. And they're starting having those conversations now, rather than just sending an email going, just to let you know, we're not using these paper processes from the 1st of July. We're moving everything to digital. It's starting to have those conversations now, attending, understanding, empathizing, and helping people. Thank you, Jade. And so, again, an activity, and this is a big one, so it's one to take away with you, but I'd really be interested if anybody has any examples of this now. Think about listening, exploring, feeling, acting. Reflect and share a time where you have listened with fascination. And even though these are old quotes, they're really good ones. I love that quote from Klein, it's about listening with fascination, where you're really actually really interested in what someone says. Listening to understand, as Carl Rogers says, not just, okay, so well, what are the issues? And then, but actually you're already preparing for what your response is going to do and you're not really listening. Actually listening with, actually I'm, even if it's a really, quite negative scenario, but actually I'm fascinated why you feel like that. I genuinely am fascinated why you feel like that. Think of a time when you actually listened with fascination. Think of a time where you valued and explored conflicting perspectives, because as a leader you will get conflicting perspectives, but actually sometimes that isn't a bad thing. Because when we are looking at moving forward, and certainly business strategizing, as I've spoken about, in previous workshops that I've done, actually, if you deal with it in the right way, listening to different views actually is really useful, because it helps you think, actually, do you know what? I don't agree with the reasoning behind your perspective, but actually, I can see that some people would see it like that. And that'll enable us to move forward. So actually, let's explore that, because actually I do value what you say, because you can't turn around and say that you're a genuinely inclusive, compassionate organization as long as you just adhere to everything that I say. Sometimes you've got to turn around and say, well, actually, yeah, it's not my perspective, but yeah, I can see why you would feel like that. But then you support them if it isn't appropriate within your leadership model. You support them then to say how they can alter that to get to where you need to be. Or sometimes you support your leadership model to say, actually, good point, Nate, well made. I'd never thought of it from that perspective. And this next one's interesting, that you've mirrored and felt colleagues' distress, frustration, joy, etc., without being overwhelmed. Now, this is really important. This goes back to things that we've said before. We've looked at emotional intelligence, and it is about us beginning to say, somebody could get really irate with you. And it's very easy to say, get irate back again, because you're furious with what they've said. How dare you say that? But that isn't true at all. How can you say that? Or they say something that's really sad that's going on, and you can say, oh no. But actually, that isn't what you're there for as a leader. You're there to be the barometer, to listen, and you've felt their distress. You've shown empathy for it, but you've not shown that you're overwhelmed. You haven't burst into tears, or you haven't got giddy about it. You've actually been appropriately respectful and understanding, but what you haven't done is been overwhelmed. And that's why you sort of mirrored it and go, oh, I'm really, really pleased for you. That's really, really good. But without becoming too gushy, or, oh God, that's absolutely awful. Like, what can we do as an organisation to support you without bursting into tears? And also taken thoughtful and intelligent action to support individuals and teams. Hold on to those words, thoughtful and intelligent action to support individuals and teams. Not just taken action to move us on to where we need to be. You've taken thoughtful and intelligent action to support individuals and teams. So I'm just going to give you 3 minutes, take us up to 5 to 2, to say, actually, any examples of those. I've purposely taken my time to talk through those to give you a chance to think about it. And again, you need to take this away to you to really embed it. But any examples anyone would like to share with us? Just give you a couple more minutes just to have a reflection on that. And like I said, if you want to share, then feel free. Whether that's in the chat, or if you just want to just go off mic and say something, you're quite welcome. Okay, well, while you're just in the final minute, while you think of it, I'll just give you an example from something that I've been involved with recently with my MenCap hat on, that we support people at end of life, as you might imagine, and unfortunately that doesn't always mean an older end of life. It's people with life limiting conditions. And there's a scenario at the moment where one of the very young people that we support is coming to the end of his life. And I've been doing a lot of work to support the leader of the particular home that he's living in, to say, because they are becoming overwhelmed with grief about the fact that somebody they're supporting is going to die. But the trouble is that is becoming to the detriment of the family that is who are the parents of the 22-year-old that is going to die at any time. And doing a lot of work about the fact of actually, and so I did some role modeling there of actually talking through and sharing, because actually the last thing the parents want is the support team bursting into tears and then them feeling that they have to support you. They need to know that actually you are a strong role model, and also the other support workers who are there need to see from the manager that actually, do you know what, we are there to support. And unfortunately, this is a part of our job. And yes, it is really distressing. Yes, it is really frustrating that somebody so wonderful, so young is going to die. But actually, we can't be overwhelmed by that, because that isn't our job. That isn't useful. It's not our job to openly grieve to the detriment of the family's grief, to the detriment of that. It's about supporting the family, supporting the wider team. And actually, yes, of course, we're all impacted by these things, but you don't do it openly. You show that you're not overwhelmed. And don't get me wrong, we're not heartless. You get in your car and you just think, oh, so very sad. But you don't show that at the time. You remained composed. You're incredibly supportive. You're incredibly sympathetic to everybody's needs. But most importantly, the person here whose needs we really need to put front are the young person himself. And the last thing he needs is support workers that keep having to leave the room because they're bursting into tears. And a manager that is really, really struggling and becoming overwhelmed. He needs as much normality and joviality, and we need to make his last days as pleasant as possible. And that's an extreme example, but we are working in a sector where those things come, and you've got to lead by example like that as a compassionate leader. Okay, so that's an extreme example, but it does happen in our day-to-day lives. It's easy to get drawn into those things. And even if something like that, you don't appear heartless, you appear professional, because that's what your role is. Excuse me. That is what everybody wants. Thank you, Jade. So, in summary there, we've got compassionate leaders empathize with their colleagues, really understand where they're coming from, seeking to understand rather than be understood. Don't go into a meeting saying, right, you've got to do this, we're going digital because we've got to do that, saying, right, actually, we're going digital. How does everybody feel about that? It's the most intelligent and effective way to go start a meeting. Commit to supporting others to cope with and respond successfully to those challenges. If you have empathized and say, yeah, actually, we know a number of the team are going to find this change difficult. So let's seek to understand why that is. And then when you've done that, you can commit to supporting them. You can't support them otherwise. So often I sometimes see leaders going, oh, but I've given this because to really show I'm grateful for that, or I've done this, and going, no, that isn't what they needed. That isn't what they needed at all. You didn't, and actually it made it worse because it showed you really didn't understand where they were coming from. That just came across as an incredible superficial act. And so focusing on enabling those they lead to be effective and thrive in their work. It's not about you bolstering up, it's about you growing your team and gradually stepping back, taking off the scaffolding and allowing them to be effective and thrive. That is the way, and we go on to look at recruitment and retention in another workshop, but that is what people really want when they stay, when they retain. They want to feel valued. They want to feel there's a professional development for them. They want to know that actually they haven't got this unobtainable leader that's doing wonderful things but will never be as wonderful as them. They want to know actually this is somebody, my line manager actually helps me to be effective and thrive. They create a psychologically safe environment, an environment whereby people feel safe enough to say in a meeting, actually, I didn't really understand that. Or actually, I don't know that I really agree with that. Have you thought about doing this? They're brave things to know that there's no comeback on them. Or somebody that can come back to you another time and go, you know, you asked me to do this. Actually, I'm really struggling with it. Or I think I've made a mistake. That's the environment you need to create, because all of those things will happen. How many of us have gone into a meeting and everybody and turned around and said, you're right, if anybody had any questions, is everybody okay with that? And everyone's gone, oh yeah. And they go out, and as they go out, you can hear them in the corridor turning around going, so what was it she wanted us to do again? Or they don't come back with what you'd asked them to do and they say, oh, well, I wasn't really quite sure what you meant. Isn't that the most frustrating thing ever? Or somebody's done something, you go, well, hold on, why wasn't I aware of this earlier? Why didn't you tell me earlier? And even though we often put that on the individuals and say, yeah, but the trouble is they just don't, they didn't ask me. Why didn't they just ask me? Why didn't they just tell me? And we put that on the individuals that we support and line manage, rather than holding the mirror up to ourselves and going, what didn't I do to enable them to feel that they could come to me and say that? That's what a compassionate leadership does. Yes, we're all as equally as frustrated that somebody didn't ask the question, but instead of putting it on them and groaning, going, oh, well, if you don't ask me, I don't know, do I? If you don't say these things, we actually go, why didn't they feel that this was an environment that they could share these things? Thank you, Jade. In safe team environments, there are higher levels of learning and innovation. And that's what we want. We want learning and innovation, in contrast to blaming cultures that are fearful and inhibit compassion and prevent learning. I often hear leaders go, yeah, but I can't delegate because they just none of them ever take initiative themselves. They never take responsibility for things. Without me, I'm not quite sure. And you're going, well, actually, that's the environment. You've prevented that. Because people are so fearful of taking on responsibility because they're worried about what the outcome will be. That's why you end up having to do all of this stuff. Whereas if people feel safe, they'll go, well, did you want me to help out with that? I've never done it before, but I'm happy to give it a go. You know, I'm happy to, if you can show me what to do, I'm happy to learn. I'll say, well, actually, I'd really quite like to lead on this project this time. I'd quite like to do that. And then that's a double whammy, because you have got a team that's developing that will want to stay and retain with you for ages. And also, you're not the ones going, well, trouble is nobody else, who else will do it if I don't do it? Again, how often do we hear leaders going, yeah, but I've got to do it because who else will do it? And honestly, if you look at the list of things that actually, who else will do it? I would say probably about 50% of them, actually other people could do that. Of course, there are some that are specific for you, but others, there's no reason that you can't delegate. You may be accountable, but you can give responsibility of those for others, but you've got to create the right environment. Thank you, Jade. Again, if people just feel blamed and pointed out, well, look, your head's down, your shoulders are down. I know when I've been in meetings and someone sort of, you just sort of feel, blimey, everyone's taking a strip off me here. I don't know why I bothered in the first place. We must have all been like that. I'm sure all of you have felt like that in the past. You begin to think, well, hold on a minute. What's the point of me doing that? I'm really, really putting myself out here. And I just seem to be criticised for everything that I do. You know, it's just not a nice place to, and that's the bit, forget salary. That's the bit that leads people to say, this isn't, I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to work here anymore. And that's where you end up losing really good people. Thank you, Jade. So now an activity to jot down, and then please, if you want to share. When you think of the word safe, just very, very quickly, literally we're going to spend a couple of minutes doing this, list the first 5 words that you think of when you hear the word safe. What are the first 5 words? And then when you've done that, list the first 5 words that you think of when you hear the word blame. Just quick. The first 5 words you think of when you hear the word safe, and the first 5 words you think of when you hear the word blame. Just write them down very, very quickly. If you haven't got a pen and paper, just shout them out. Go off mic and tell me what you think they are.
We've got some in the chat, Claire. We've got protect, support, secure, help,
Oh,
enabled.
brilliant. Oh, that's really bizarre. I can't. Where have they come through? Well done for spotting those. I couldn't see those. Thank you.
You've got trusting, open,
Brilliant. They're just
learning,
beginning to come through.
competence. These are all ones when you think of the word safe.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Wonderful. And thank you, Holly, as well, for posting on where you've mirrored and felt distress from others, because these have literally just come through to me. So thanks for, I've got all these now, Jade.
Oh, good.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So
a few more. We've got family, home, comfort, warm, innovative, together, team. So they're all the safe ones. And then we've got a couple for blame. We've got bad, fault, closed, defensive, allocation, shame, insecure,
brilliant.
undervalued, unsupported, defensive.
Absolutely. These are brilliant. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing. I've come on and off my chat because I think I was on it and it must have froze because these are all coming through now. So thank you. And thanks, Jade, for prompting. Yeah, thank you so much. That's really helpful. So again, think what kind of environment would you rather work in then? Somewhere where you feel that it's good, trusting, learning and supportive, comforting, happy and warm. And those of us that, and even sort of, like that home sort of family feel, I mean, that I know that working like that, but actually if you feel that safety, particularly if we want to create that safety, those of us that provide residential care for the places that we're working in, that innovative, together, learning, committed, whereas allocation, bad, fault, closed, defensive. And we're thinking of helpful, but it is incredible how often a leadership structure, often subconsciously, looks to blame. A really good example of this, if you think about health and safety audits, if you go around and do a health and safety audit, you go round and you spot all the things that are wrong. You think, right, from a health and safety, oh, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. Flip that on its head. Yes, note the things that are wrong, but start off by saying, actually, I noted that that was really good, that was really good, that was really good, that was really good. Do a health and safety audit by saying, these were the things that you did really, really well, but I also noticed this. And then you can begin to say, so this is really, really good. So we've noticed these things. So how can we transfer some of that? Let's work together to see how we can transfer that. If you're able to do that, why are bin bags still being put out behind the fire exit? Why is a fire door still being prompted open or got a coat hanging up on it? Rather than going in and just doing those litany of all those things, flip it round, because you want to feel that you are competent, and pointing out the positive things will make you feel protected, supported, secure, all the work, competent. Isn't that a great starting point to then address things rather than immediately coming out of blame culture? And yes, you have to address those other points that aren't so good, but people don't come at it in a defensed, closed way. as Jem has stated. Thank you, Jade. So we're now moving on to the link between compassionate leadership and successful organisational growth. Employees treated with compassion are more engaged and motivated, as we've said. All of those things that you've put in the chat, those people say, you know, you're engaged, you're motivated. Look at those words. You feel supported. You feel good about your working life. You feel trusted. You want to learn. You're more engaged. You're all motivated. And engaged and motivated employees with high level of well-being, because you haven't got a high level of well-being if you're continually feeling that you're making faults and you're not feeling very good about yourself and you're feeling defensive. But if you've got that high level of well-being, you provide higher quality support and caregiving to others. And I did a longitudinal study on this, that actually the direct correlation between the levels of well-being in supporting caregivers and actually educators as well, and the individuals that they are supporting, caring for, educating, is a direct correlation. So if we enable those people that provide support, education, care with a higher level of well-being, they will provide that, which means that they're not making the meds errors so frequently. Again, I was noticing when you're looking at levels of meds errors that were being made and other safeguarding incidents, it was often in those organisations when we went back, those organisations that felt overworked and stressed and they didn't have high levels of well-being. That's where the errors were being made. Whereas those people, I'm not saying they worked any shorter hours, but they felt more valued. There were less errors there. And the feedback from the individuals that they supported was more positive, and from the families was more positive. The amount of time, the amount of training, the amount of resources was exactly the same. The difference was the levels of well-being of those individual groups. Those people that had a low level of well-being led that. And then the most concerning point of that is then the individuals that they were caring for and supporting and educating, that led to them have a low level of well-being, and that led to them then leading to behavioural issues. Clear goals and good team leadership leads to lower levels of stress. At a time where we are seeing really, really rapidly increasing time off as a result of stress-related illness, actually giving clear goals and good team leadership leads to lower levels of stress. You can't be a good leader where sometimes you're blaming people and then go, oh, at the end of the week, oh yeah, but well done. I'm really glad I spoke to you like that on Monday, because come Friday, you've all done that, because it's just confusing. What are they going to come in and do? That makes me feel stressful. Are they going to come back on Monday and be really, really awkward? Or, you know, I'm working over the weekend. What's it going to be like over the weekend? I'm not quite sure. You know, but clear goals, even if they are quite challenging goals, like we're going digital, or we need to get to this point, or we're moving premises, or we're taking on an additional service. As long as they're clear goals and you've got good, clear team leadership, then people won't feel so stressed. You go into a dark room, the first thing you try and do is find out where the light switch is. You don't want, it's no fun stumbling around in the dark. You want clear goals and clear leadership. And then when you've got employee engagement, satisfaction and well-being, and this is a hard fact that those of us that are working at, you know, senior levels of leadership actually improve financial performance, because they're the things that people want to come and use your service. They're the organisations that people want to come and work with you, so you've not got to spend so much money on agency staff. They're the things that families will speak really highly of you in the CQC interviews, so you'll get a really good rating, so more people will want to come and use you. It's a win-win scenario. And also, you will spend less money. This is frank, brass fracks, less money on tribunals, on HR backwards and forwards, and also on the fact of people that are off for long-term stress-related illnesses where you have to provide cover for them and you have to provide occupational therapy. It's simple, effective, compassionate leadership. Thank you, Jade. So meeting the core needs of your staff can help transform their work lives and in turn the safety and quality of the care they deliver. That is really, really important. So you're meeting the core needs. That's your starting point. Not, oh, actually, where's my to-do list? Actually, are you meeting the core needs of the staff you support, that you line manage, that you're responsible for? Because if you are, that will help transform their work lives and in turn the lives of the individuals that they are supporting. Thank you, Jade. So, how compassionate leadership can be achieved in practice? Prioritize engagement and motivation. Make time for that. So often I hear, oh, well, I haven't got time for that. I haven't got time. I don't know how you've got time to speak to, but I haven't got time to do that. It's almost like this badge of honor. I haven't got time to answer all these emails. No, but I'm going to in this meeting actually prioritize time to make some engagement with your team and to actually look, how am I motivating? Because it is worthwhile. That has got to be a priority. Not every minute of every day. And actually, your team will thank you for tripping over them all of the time, being hanging around, because they go, well, haven't you got your own job to do? It's about prioritizing engagement and motivation. When you look at your things, actually, how much time have I spent today? How much time have I spent with my team? What meetings am I cancelling because I've got to dash and do something else? And how often does that happen? How does that make people feel valued? Find out employees' interests and passions. Take the time not just to superficially say, oh, did you have, I know you're off for a couple of days. Did you have a good break? What did you do? Rather than just going, oh, hope you had a good break. Nice to see you back. Carry on, not really interested. I'd say, well, what did you do? Obviously don't be invasive with it, but actually, then if somebody turns around and said, oh, well, actually, I went fishing this weekend, or, oh, actually, it was really, really nice. It's the first time I've been meaning to read this book for ages. It's the first time I've had a chance to read this book, or I had an opportunity to, I don't know, go scuba diving, whatever it may be, but actually, and that gives a starting point, because then it makes that little bit more personal to empathize, to say, oh, actually, I thought of you the other day because somebody recommended this book to me and it was really good. I know you're a reader, aren't you? Or, oh, actually, I thought of you because I know you like scuba diving and I saw this program and people think, oh, actually, they recognize me as a human being, not just as a commodity. And that's a really good starting point if you're going to empathize. Actually, what are they interested in? And also, because none of this is a coincidence, it's a really good starting point for you to be able to turn around and say, actually, who are the best people to lead on this particular initiative? Because if you know somebody likes the sort of things that are more sitting at a desk writing down and doing that, whereas you've got somebody that's a more an active person, if you've got something that does requires more activity and going out there, it makes sense to delegate that to the person that has an interest in being out and about and doing active things. And the person that really enjoys things. I had this conversation with someone, because this is as exciting as my conversations are, about preference, because he was saying, actually, oh gosh, I don't really like Word very much. My safe space is Excel and I like spreadsheets, and that's where I feel happy. And I was saying, oh, well, actually, it's really interesting because, and he's somebody that I line manage, and I turned around and said, well, actually, that's why we get on so well, because actually my safe space, I'm more of the narrative. And that's why I'm really, really pleased that you're in the team, because I know you like that bit. And actually, I much feel happier. And I know that if I need any support with that, in the same way that you've got to know, if you have any problems writing reports, just send it over and I'll proofread it. And it was just quite a nice little share. And literally, that was as stimulating as who likes Excel more and who feels happier in the Excel world, who feels happier in the Word world. It was a 5-minute conversation, but now it's really good because I'm able to sort of say to him, actually, I'm really, really pleased because can you help me with this? Because I really struggle with that. Or could you do that? And actually, he's able to say, look, you know what I'm like in Word, but I know you wanted this report done, but I've done that. And it's fine. And there's no judgment. It was a very equal playing field. So you can nurture and support growth, because I did have to say to this person, but you do realise you are going to still have to write reports, and I'd rather some of those be in a Word document, so it's actually support that growth beyond the mandatory things. If you know that somebody's really interested in developing, so if we've just developed this whole issue of like champions and people being a health and safety champion or a safeguarding champion or a medication champion or a fire warden, and all the things that you'll have as well, just because it's not mandatory, go with people's interests and nurture and support their growth in their interests areas, and create a nurturing, psychologically safe environment by which this can take place. Now, the last 3 bits are really, really important, and everybody uses it all of the time. When people say, put your own oxygen mask on first, we all say that. Yeah, how many of you do it? In all honesty, when was the last time that you identified your interests and passions? What makes you spark? Because I tell you what, the biggest feedback that I get, when anything else, is actually you're really passionate about that. It's really nice to have somebody that's so passionate about it. And you'll find that as well. This is why we choose to work in this particular sector, because it's something that we feel passionate about. Because goodness knows, I'm absolutely sure that we didn't do it because we just thought, oh, actually, we do it for the big payday at the end of the month. You do it because it's something that you want to feel passionate about. And if you lose your passion, and then actually, what else have you got? So really identify what's your interests and passions. And I mean beyond work. Do you like going out and going for a walk or a run or reading a book? And actually, how much time do you do to identify your passions? Because it's very difficult to make small talk about a book if you don't ever read anything, or you don't ever watch anything, or you don't ever do anything, and all you do is work. And actually, then other people see that as in, gosh, I don't actually want to be the leader here because they don't do anything else. All they ever do is work. And give permission to yourself to dedicate time to be compassionate. I promise you it will be a worthwhile investment. The deferred gratification that you get from being compassionate, and it will make you feel better, but also it'll make your teams feel better. And because of that, you'll get all of those other benefits that we've spoken about. And we started with the Dalai Lama. As we come to an end, we're going to finish with Polonius from Hamlet. Not bad, is it? Starting with Dalai Lama and finishing with Shakespeare. We're nothing if not highbrow here in these power hours. To thine own self be true. You know if you are being a what's it of a leader. Actually, do you know what? I should have made more time to speak to that person, or actually I wasn't really listening to them, or actually I didn't prioritize my day very well and I really should have got to that email. You know that. So go with your gut. Be the kind of leader that you want to be. I can't dictate what that would be like. Be the compassionate leader that best suits you, because it's your compassion, your way of demonstrating that. As long as to your own self be true. Don't try and be a carbon copy of a leader that is somebody that goes, but you've got to do this, you've got to do this, because actually I've got to appear too busy to do everything. I haven't got time to do that because I'm far too important. Really? Is that what you're like? To thine own self be true. Thank you, Jade. Because you can go through your daily activities with this brusque efficiency and let people know how busy you are. Yes, I'm really, really busy. Oh, yeah, no. Oh, well, no, don't ask Claire that because she's too busy. Oh, for goodness sake. No, honestly, don't disturb Jade because she's really, really busy. She'd never, because she's so incredibly important. She's too busy for this. And oh, no, whatever you do, don't ask Reese that because, he's so, actually, some days, yes, because then you turn around and say, look, I've got this report to write. So if you just literally, if you can just give me a bit of space, that would be most appreciative, unless it's emergency, but not all the time. You can choose to go through your day valuing human connection and showing compassion. And actually, it doesn't take any longer to walk through when you're going to get a drink to say, actually, I'm going to go and get a glass of water. Does anybody else want one? Or actually, you know, I'm popping out for some lunch. Does anybody else want me to pick them up a sandwich while they're there? Or does anybody want to come with me? Or I was in the shops and I saw these biscuits and I know that you like biscuits. It doesn't take any longer. It doesn't take any longer at all. You know, to actually say to somebody, if you notice somebody's actually, oh, I really like, you know, really like the way you've done your hair. You know, actually say it doesn't make you look bad as a leader. It makes you look human, makes you look nice. Thank you, Jade. Again, so choose what you want to do, because do you want to be this kind of leader that everybody's, you know, because then everyone thinks, and then all your other leaders will be, and you just end up firefighting, you know, just be a whole team of firefighters. You'll all be exhausted, you'll all be burnt out, and you'll end up saying, I don't want to do this anymore, which isn't the reason why we came into work for this sector. It isn't the reason why we wanted to aspire to be leaders in this sector. It's a simple choice, and the choice is with you. Thank you, Jade. So this is your takeaway activity. The others I want you to take away and ruminate, but this is the one for you. Block out some time in your diary to dedicate to being compassionate. And the starting point for that is being compassionate to yourself, please, team. Find out the interests and passions of 3 colleagues, because that'll help you. Just go and find 3 colleagues that you can say and actually find out actually how can you say what their interests are. And then make time to reconnect with your interests and passions. So when someone turns around and says, really? Oh gosh, really camping? Oh, is that your thing? Oh, no, 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 that's not my thing. I'd much rather be doing this, but it makes you human. And then identify how you are going to optimize this information. What are you going to do with it? Because to be a leader, yes, you be compassionate, because that's the difference between someone who says, oh yeah, she's really, really nice, but she doesn't actually get anything done. Oh yeah, he's great, but I'm not really quite sure where we're going with this. So identify how are you going to optimize this information to get the most out of yourself and also your teams. Remember, to thine own self be true. Thank you, Jade. So that brings us to the end, and we always finish on time, but we always try and leave a couple of minutes at the end in case anybody has got any questions or any points, or just to remind you that if you want to connect with me on link or send me an email, I've got you know, my email is in the slides that will go out. Feel free to, if anyone has any further questions. But anyone in the last couple of minutes got any questions or points that they'd like to raise?
You've got one question in the chat, Claire. We may not have time to fully address this, but Erica asks, how do you affect change upwards when those above you are not compassionate?
Yeah, good question, and it's one that I often get asked, Erica, and it's a long one that we can take offline if you want to. But the simple thing is adopt the same strategies. If you're going into somewhere, actually try and understand why it is that those people are operating in that way, because that can be your starting point. Try and find out what their interests are, what their passions are, why they came into this in the first place. Because even though you might not agree with all of it, you know what your entry point is, and that's how you can start affecting change, because you understand why they're operating in that particular way. So when you're, you know, really seek to understand and say, right, so you're telling us that we can't do that. Can I just understand why exactly that is? And sometimes be very frank. So, you know, I'm just really interested. Why did you come into this in the, you know, in the first place? You know, you've been in this for a few years. Why did you come into, you know, just try and elicit those questions. And it will take time, but listen, have your antennae out, and there will be some clues, and that's a good entry point for you to find out. That's how you can affect change, is by understanding why they're either against your change or why they want to change in a particular way, and that's your entry point to then go in move forward. And I do an awful lot of that on the session on business sense and sustainability, where we really say about addressing adversity and how we grip onto that, and that is in a subsequent session we get more into that. But I hope that's given you a very quick, immediate one. And I do know, Erica, you're probably thinking, yes, that's easier said than done. I do know that, but none of this, we never said any of this was going to be easy. But just take the time, okay? Just take the time.
Thank you, Claire. Yeah, just checking if there's any further questions. It's just gone 2:30, so we will leave it there for today. You have got Claire's email address in the chat box if you want to contact her straight away, but I will follow up after today's event with the slides, the recording, and further contact information for Claire as well. The next session in this series, session 4, will be on the 23rd of May, and that's around positive recruitment and retention, and we'll be building on what we've learned today with Claire as well. Look forward to receiving your feedback in the chat. Thank you. I can see you're doing that now. But until next time, thank you so much. And can I wish Claire the best of luck? She's running a marathon on Sunday. I'm sure you'll support her along with me as well. And we'll see you next time. Thank you all so much. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.
Take care. Thanks, Jade. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all. Fabulous. Bye.